Hi, I'm Kate and you're watching Raising Minerva. Most parenting journeys start with pregnancy, and since we're starting this channel while Minnie is still a baby, we thought it would be apt to focus on pregnancy and deliver a hopefully informative and positive mini-series about growing a tiny little human. I've got lots of ideas of things to talk about surrounding pregnancy, topics to discuss and people to chat to. But let's start with our pregnancy journey. Buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy ride. And if you don't like the word cervix, you're going to have to deal with it. So to start off our story, I left my job. It's not the ideal start to a pregnancy story, I know, but that is the case. There was a lot of things surrounding this. I did really love my job. I didn't really want to leave, but I had to. So I was really sad. It sent me into a bit of a spiral. I actually went into something of a meltdown, a breakdown at the time. So my mental health wasn't really that good. I then had to grapple with the situation that we would have to stop trying for a baby because we had been trying at the time. And this hit me even harder. I was in a really bad place at the time with my mental health. So one day I went to my old work to pick up my things. I didn't really want to stick around long. We sort of went in and out, got my things, left, was feeling absolutely dreadful. But when I got home, I knew that I would have to take a pregnancy test. I hadn't had my period for about I was due it a week previously. So I knew that I was definitely late. In the back of my mind, I was just thinking, I can't possibly be pregnant. There's no possible way, we haven't been trying that long. And this horrible thing has just happened, it just wouldn't happen now. So we got home, we made bacon sandwiches, veggie bacon sandwiches, and I ate half my sandwich before just feeling too distracted. I knew I would have to go and do my test. So I went upstairs, I peed on a stick, as you do, and I set it at the edge of the bath. I came back downstairs and ate the other half of my veggie bacon sandwich, and I decided I couldn't go back up alone. I needed someone to hold my hand and make me feel less scared. So Brendan, my partner, Minnie's dad, came upstairs with me and we looked at the test together. Obviously, because I was in the middle of a bit of a meltdown and I had just lost my job, when we saw that the test was positive, my instant reaction was just, oh shit, because I just thought, I'm not bringing any money in, I haven't got a job. So it was really difficult. Obviously, I was so happy. I was super happy. But at the same time, it did feel a little bit strange because we just didn't have my income coming in. We then decided it was probably best for me, because I did have this mental health stuff going on, that it would be a really good idea for me to take a rest for my mental health and take a break. So I didn't immediately look for another job. I did actually stay off work for quite a number of months because it was just the best for my mental health at the time. Sometimes we have to do these things. It's really good, and I'm really positive looking back that we made the right decision there, and it kept me going through the rest of my pregnancy as well. The next stage is we actually went and we met our midwife, our community midwife, who I can only describe as a ray of sunshine. She is a wonderful, happy, positive person, and she really began to lift me out of this this slump that I was in, really, from leaving my job, and from the kind of fallout from that, the mental fallout from that. Meeting our midwife really lifted me up, and it really made the pregnancy feel really real as well. I was really excited. So whilst I was dealing with these mental health issues, I was also really excited about being pregnant and about meeting my baby soon. And this midwife just confirmed all of that. She's an absolute angel. She's wonderful. So we looked at our birth options from here. I decided that it would be a really good idea to go to a birth centre. It wasn't the hospital closest to us, but it was one near-ish to us. And I just thought that a birth centre would be a much better option for me personally. I would feel more confident and more comfortable in a birth centre. So I went and looked around. It was beautiful, looked like a hotel, absolutely gorgeous. And we decided there and then that that's where we wanted to have our baby. The staff were absolutely wonderful as well. So if you have a birth centre near you, I would recommend going and have a look around. Then the next thing that came up for us in our story was our 12-week scan. Now, obviously, this is the thing that everybody is super excited for. This is usually when you tell everybody that you're pregnant as well, which is what we decided to do. So even though I was still a bit down in the dumps, everything was kind of looking up. You know, we had this scan to look forward to as well. We had our scan, everything was fine, baby was fine, everything was measuring normal, and I was feeling fine as well. At this point, it was mentioned to us that because of something that had happened to me previously, like 10 years previously, there was a specific consultant at this hospital who might be interested to meet me. So 10 years prior to me becoming pregnant, I actually had what's called a LETS procedure. A LETS procedure is where they remove precancerous cells from the cervix just to stop any chance of cancer occurring from those precancerous cells. Precancerous cells aren't always actually going to cause cancer. Sometimes they're just abnormal cells. They remove them just in case. So I had this procedure done 10 years ago, and this consultant at my hospital that I was at when we found out we were pregnant was a specialist in dealing with ladies who'd had this procedure and had then gone on to decide to have children later on. So they told us that we would meet her and we would be helping her with some research really, and better gaining a knowledge for her of pregnancies for ladies who've had this procedure. So that was talked about, we didn't do it there and then. The next stage was we shared, obviously, with everybody, every man and his dog, that we were expecting a baby. So here is our pregnancy announcement. And here is our scan picture. And I was literally in the car on the way home from the scan, and I was like furiously writing my post like this. I was so excited to share this. And at this point, because I'd met our little baby and I'd seen that little bead on the screen, and I was so excited that I was lifted out of this pit that I'd been in, basically. I was so happy. And so we shared this post on our social media. We'd obviously told all of our family prior to this anyway, weeks ago. And this outpouring of love just came blasting at us. We were absolutely overwhelmed with love and affection from all of our friends, all of our family. It was an absolutely amazing feeling. Absolutely loved it. You just really feel wrapped in like a warm baby hug. Like everyone's so excited for you, and it was wonderful. It did wonders for my mental health at the time. I really felt like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. I'm bringing a kid into this world, and I can do this, and I'm strong. And it was a really wonderful thing to do. So shortly after we told everybody, we decided we would have a look at options for pregnancy classes, things like that. I'd heard about hypnobirthing through a friend, and so I thought that would be a really good idea to go ahead and get booked onto a course. So we booked in with the lovely Abby of Love Your Birth Hypnobirthing, and she's wonderful. I will be talking to Abby later in the pregnancy series about hypnobirthing, one-to-one on this couch. So yeah, check back for that later on. It might be a little while, but we will be talking to her about that. So we started our classes with Abby from Love Your Birth, and we did things like some common sense things, and we did a lot of relaxation, some techniques for breathing, just some wonderful things to really get you into the mood for a positive birth experience. Shortly after that, I think I decided that I was ready. I felt really positive. I was on a high. I was super ready to find myself a little job. It was perfect timing for Christmas temp jobs, so I actually found one at Lush, the lovely soap shop, and met wonderful people there as well. So I made lots of new friends. Everybody knew I was pregnant, obviously, and everyone treated me amazingly. The company themselves were wonderful as well. And I just had a whale of a time selling soap to people. It was absolutely wonderful, and I was really enjoying it. Working really hard, obviously not lifting heavy things, but I was having a great time. And our 20-week scan was coming up, so I was super excited about that as well. We had decided we were going to find out whether we were having a boy or a girl, just because we're kind of into the fact that science has progressed that much that you can find out. That's really exciting to us. So we went for our 20-week scan. The ultrasound guy that was doing it was really, really funny, really nice guy. And he basically just said, well, I can't see anything between the legs there, so I think you're having a girl. So I was absolutely over the moon, so was Brendan. We were just like tears of like happiness flowing down, absolutely wonderful news. And we were just gearing up really for like the best little kid in the world, you know, raising a fierce little feminist babe. We were so excited for this. So then this issue of me having this LETS procedure 10 years ago came back up again, basically saying, oh, would you like to meet the consultant? Would you be able to come in for an internal scan just for her to have a look at and sort of see where you're at with that, because it'll help research as well more than anything else. So we were like, yeah, sure, let's go for it. Like, I love the NHS, I like to help out wherever I can, and if my experience was going to help somebody else in the future, I was all for it. Absolutely, why not? We went in to the internal scan, just quite happy really, quite carefree. We thought, you know, we're going in, we're going to do this, we'll get some lunch after, you know, it was no big deal. We didn't really think anything of it at the time. Popped into the room where the consultant was waiting and hopped up onto the couch, laid back. This is an internal scan, so it's actually nothing like an ultrasound from the outside. They actually stick a special camera up your vagina and scan your cervix. So it's scanning your cervix rather than the baby. So and they just have a look at that, and they have a look at how I guess what it's doing at the time. So she did this, and I was still just laying there thinking like, oh, everything's fine. And all of a sudden, all at once, the mood in the room really changed for me and for Brendan. And it became really evident that more than just being for research, we were in that room because there was something wrong with our pregnancy. And we didn't expect this. We'd gone in thinking that it was routine, that this consultant just had a vested interest in something like this. But from her face, from the things she was saying, it became very clear that we had to worry because there was something more going on. She told us that I have a short cervix. What was happening was that my cervix was dilating already, and I was only about 20 weeks pregnant. So because of this, I was at a very, very high risk for miscarriage or early birth, both of which would not leave very good outcomes for our unborn child. Obviously, as you can imagine, we didn't take this news incredibly well. It was really, really difficult to deal with. I burst into tears straight away. The tears were actually like rolling down the sides of my face because I was laid down. I couldn't move. She still had this camera inside of me. So I was crying and the tears were rolling down here. Brendan just stood up and chucked his coat off and then sat back down again and was breathing like he was panic breathing. He said since then that he just got overwhelmed with, like, he was just so warm and panicky, and he just threw his coat off. That's all he could think to do, and grabbed my hand and squeezed my hand tight. And we were being told all of this stuff. And your mind is reeling, like you're not listening to what the consultant was saying. So I wasn't listening to what she was saying very well because my brain was just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I was freaking out. It was really, really dark. It was really hard. I'm surprised that I did it, to be quite honest. I'm surprised I got through it. I thought there and then I was just going to implode, something. It was really, really difficult. So then the consultant explained to us what we had to do to keep safe and to keep our pregnancy on the straight and narrow and going, and, you know, and not lose our baby. And basically she had a look. She in these situations, sometimes what they can do is they can put what's called a suture stitch in, which means that just keeps the cervix closed until the point where you're ready to sort of give birth. So she had a look. She said she unfortunately couldn't put a suture stitch in because there wasn't enough cervix. 10 years ago when I'd had my procedure, they'd taken away a large portion of the left side of my cervix. So if she was to put a stitch in, she would likely perforate my bowel or cause a miscarriage. And she didn't want to do either of those things, obviously. So we couldn't have a suture stitch. Because we couldn't have a suture stitch, the only option left was for me to go on intense bed rest. And this means literally using physics to stop my baby from coming too early. I had to just lay flat for 24 hours a day because that was the only thing that was going to keep my baby in. This was a really, really difficult thing to deal with. Mostly because I like doing things, you know. I was excited for this part of my pregnancy where I was going to be glowing and I was going to be, you know, showing my bump was going to be there, and I wanted to show that off to people. I wasn't going to be able to do any of this stuff because I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't leave my bed. I found it really difficult because of boredom as well. There's not a lot to do. There's only so much telly you can watch. And just generally didn't get any exercise. I didn't eat much because I didn't feel like I needed to. I wasn't using much energy. I didn't sleep very well because I was always in bed, so I could just sleep when I wanted. So I didn't sleep well at night then. And I also I found that it had a knock-on effect on my mental health because of what people were saying to me. I had a few comments like, oh, I wish I could lay in bed all day, or I'd give anything to just go to bed for 24 hours. Or that I was so lucky that I got to rest during my pregnancy. I was so lucky that I had such a chilled out pregnancy. Now let me tell you, it was not chilled out. On the surface I might have looked like I was doing nothing, but in here, all I was thinking 24 hours a day for the same amount of time I had to be in bed was, this is all going to end badly. I was just so worried that we were going to lose our baby. And I don't think that showed at the time, and that's maybe why people expected that I was just having a whale of a time holed up in bed. But it was really difficult. It was a dark place in my mind because I was constantly thinking of the worst case scenario. When I went for a shower even, you know, I would lay in the bath and use the shower head like this because I was convinced that if I stood up for any amount of time, that was going to be it. During this time, I also had to have progesterone injections. So they're injections that a lot of pregnant ladies get, or people who are trying to conceive get, just to kind of encourage your reproductive system to work properly and to its optimum. So I had these every week. So every time I left the house to go and get those, because you have to go and get them at the hospital, I was panicking and I was stressed because I was out of the house and I wasn't laid down anymore. And that was really, really hard to cope with as well. So everything really was difficult. Everything was this added like level of stress to everything. And, you know, people didn't help when they made those sorts of comments to me about being chilled out and having a great time. It was also hard from the point of view that Brendan had to do everything, so that's not ideal, you know. I do like to do things for myself, but he literally had to do everything. He cooked every single meal for me, he cleaned the entire house, he went and got all of the shopping, all on top of working from home as well. He was always there for me, and I can't sing his praises enough. What a wonderful guy, you know. But it was hard. It was tough in our relationship. We cried a lot, lots of nights, over and over. Because we just weren't sure. We couldn't plan for the future. Everything got taken away from us because of the possibility that we wouldn't be having this baby. So really the lowest point, I would say, during bed rest. During all of this, we were also backwards and forwards with our consultant at the hospital about whether we'd be able to use the birth centre that I had my heart set on. She was adamant that I could not. I was adamant that when I reach full term, there are no issues then. There'll be nothing different about my cervix. It will just act like it acts, and that I should be able to use the birth centre. But alas, the consultant was not in agreement, and you can't use it if the consultant won't sign that off. So we got to a point where we really were at loggerheads with our consultant. It was really, really difficult. And everything just stopped to care for our baby. We couldn't plan for anything. So it was very hard. Slowly, however, we did hit milestones. 27 weeks was when we knew that it was not going to be classed as a late miscarriage and would instead be classed as an early birth. Obviously, there's not much difference within these things, but the chance of survival is much higher should baby be born after that time. We were so happy that we'd reached this milestone. Obviously still feeling a bit down in the dumps about the whole situation, but we started to look forward to reaching our targets. So we had 27 weeks in mind and we reached that and we passed it. Every single week that went by was just another like, it's closer, it's closer, it's coming, it's closer. And it was a really, really good thing to look forward to those weeks. We reached 32 weeks and that means that any baby born after that, still premature if they're not born at full term, but has a much higher chance of survival because they have a fully functioning lung system as well. So we reached 32 weeks and we were super excited about that. And things started to look up, things got a lot more positive. And then I decided that I would go and speak to my consultant again. And the consultant did not change her mind, and it was clear she wasn't going to. And because of this, I said to Brendan, look, why don't we just change hospitals to the hospital that's closer to us? Because we can't use the birth centre anyway. We might as well go to the one that's closer and use the birth ward there. So we did this, we changed over. It's quite rushed and quite last minute. It was just after Christmas. And so when we did this, I had another appointment to see a consultant there to see what their take on everything was. So I went to meet this consultant and I had another scan and everything was looking fine. Minnie was nice and snug in there, measuring normal. Heart rate was always wonderful. Everybody used to always say her heart rate's really good. And I started to feel a bit more positive. Also, the consultant there signed me off bed rest so I could get up and I could go and do things again. And let me tell you, getting my freedom back when I was like heavily pregnant was like the most liberating thing. It was wonderful. I could enjoy being pregnant again. I would go out down to the shopping centre and like out with my friends and things. Probably more than I should have done for a heavily pregnant woman. But I had a really great time. So things were looking back up again. Things started to get better. We've moved to the new hospital. I even looked around the birth ward to try and ease some of my fears about giving birth in a hospital. Doing this was probably a mistake because it just solidified my choice that I didn't want to give birth in the hospital. I guess not a mistake then because we had the right birth in the end. But I didn't want to give birth in the hospital even after looking around. So I was at a bit of a kind of crossroads of, well, what do I do? Because I don't want to go to the hospital to have my baby. I can't use the birth centre in the other hospital. So I had another word with my sunshine midwife. And I said to her, well, what can I do? Like, what are my options here? And she just said, like, where do you want to give birth? That's what she said to me. Where do you want to give birth? And when she said that, I just said, at home. Straight away, I didn't even think about it. I just said, at home. And our midwife, our wonderful, wonderful midwife, did everything in her power to make that happen for me and to advocate for me and to say that I was allowed to do that. And that's what I was going to get because she was so disappointed that I hadn't had the journey I expected up until that point. So she was like, we're going to get you this home birth. You're going to have this home birth. And I was super, super excited. So we replanned everything. We bought things for our home birth. We didn't have a pool, but we bought things for our home birth. We got the hospital bags ready just in case, but we basically had everything set to go for our home birth. And I actually was feeling surprisingly calm. I wasn't scared about giving birth. I'd done my hypnobirthing and that was really great. And I was super, super ready. So with that in mind, on our next video, we're going to talk about the actual birth experience and what a home birth is like, what kinds of things you need. Thank you so much for listening to my pregnancy story. I am so grateful that you're here on the channel and you're watching these videos. Please don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell. If you'd like to follow us on Instagram, it's Raising Minerva, and it's the same handle on Twitter as well, but I don't really tweet much. Thanks very much for watching and we'll hopefully see you soon. Bye!